Hello, I'm with the Reverend Canon Beth Ely, who is the head of our deputation to General Convention, and we're here at Holy Comforter Church in Burlington, and some of the sounds that you hear in the background are sounds of chairs being broken down and tables being folded and conversations continuing at the end of a briefing day for clergy and lay leaders on the 77th General Convention. This edition of Please Note will feature some of the reflections from some of our deputies while they were actually at the convention. Enjoy, God bless, and keep the faith.
I'm Alice Freeman from St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Wilson, also La Guadalupana in Wilson as well. I am just so honored to have been elected by the Diocese of North Carolina to represent the diocese. It has truly been an experience that I will always cherish. We have had people elected to positions, and they are representing us and the Episcopal Church very well.
I'm Ben Kogel. I'm from St. Timothy's in Winston-Salem, and I went to General Convention as a member of the Official Youth Presence. The Official Youth Presence is a kind of a separate body from the regular deputies. We have seat and voice on the floor, and we are selected instead of being voted on. And we represent our provinces. There are 2 of us from each of the 9 provinces in the Episcopal Church. One thing that stood out to me in General Convention was when we passed the structure resolution. There was a lot of debate about the structure resolution, and it took a very long time for it to come from the 50 original resolutions into one final document that was put before the House of Deputies. And despite the concerns raised, it passed unanimously, and there was applause, which is taboo in the House of Deputies, but they let it happen, and then we sung a song because it's just such an important moment that the entire church acknowledges that we need to change, and it means we're headed in the right direction.
I'm Kevin Matthews. I am the campus chaplain at St. Mary's House in Greensboro. One of the things I like about General Convention is all the things that we do that don't make the headlines, the types of resolutions that come out, where some really interesting things happen that people don't hear about immediately. And an example of that was in the Prayer Book and Liturgy Committee. We had in front of us a resolution to provide some rights for daily prayer that followed the hours of the day, the monastic hours. And we got to that one, and one of the things that became most important to the committee was to find ways to get that out, not just in book form, but across platforms. So we ended up having a couple of resolutions that we're working on with that. One was to pass the rights, but then there was another one to encourage the use of these and the publishing of them on electronic means in as many ways as possible and as quickly as possible. So from now, when that comes out, it'll be possible for, say, my students to, whenever they wake up, have a service that's right for them at that's maybe 5 minutes long at most. And they can do that throughout the day whenever they want to, and anybody else can do that too.
I'm John Tampa, the rector of Emmanuel Southern Pines, and I'd just like to offer a few thoughts about the human side of General Convention. First and foremost, General Convention is a worshiping community of Christians. Every day begins with a community Eucharist. Every single one of our legislative sessions begins and ends in prayers. And what strikes me most is there were key times when we were about to make important decisions during convention that we would stop and offer prayer before the decision was rendered. And that's important for people to know. And I think because we're so steeped in prayer, that's the reason, as Bishop Curry talked about, we've seen so much grace throughout the convention. I'm impressed that at the end of heartfelt conversations, when votes were taken, there was a general sense of pastoral sensitivity and restraint, leaving room and space for all of us to be in the same place together, regardless of how we decided. Another thing that really impresses me is the use of social media here at the convention. I actually was paying attention most of the time, but on my iPad I was able to track conversations that were going on both on Facebook and Twitter, and the virtual Christian community here gathered just really amazes me. And of course, this is doing church in the 21st century.
I'm Josephine Hicks. I'm a member of St. Peter's, Charlotte. I know I'm going to need to ask forgiveness from one of the many clergy who are crawling around Indianapolis right now, but for this sin of pridefulness. But I'm very proud to be an Episcopalian this week. The Episcopal Church, the General Convention of the Episcopal Church, did some wonderful things for God's church this week, including approving blessings for same-gender relationships with grace and without rancor, including affirming our relationships with and in the Anglican Communion, including deciding not to decide how to respond to the Anglican covenant, but to continue to monitor it with our brothers and sisters across the Anglican Communion, to continue to study it and make room for discernment in our own church about the covenant, which gives room for continued relationships with the Anglican Communion that are so important. So, again, I'll have to ask for forgiveness for this feeling of deep pride with the Episcopal Church right now.
I'm Meg McCann. I'm a parishioner at St. Philip's in Durham, and I'm an alternate deputy to General Convention. This is the third General Convention I've attended. Our resolution from a diocesan convention several years ago to add Polly Murray to the calendar of commemorations. As you probably know, she was the first African-American woman ordained in the Episcopal Church. She was also a pioneer in working against discrimination on the basis of race and sex and sexual orientation. And she was from Durham, North Carolina. So at this General Convention, first the bishops considered that and they approved it. And then it came to the House of Deputies, and finally the next to the last day of this General Convention, it was approved. So she will be added to the calendar of commemorations, and so the whole church will find out what an incredible legacy she is and what we could all learn from her.
I'm the Reverend Canon Beth Wickenberg Ely. We just finished General Convention 2012. We just walked out of the House of Deputies. It's been a long 8 days. We are very tired, but we feel like we have accomplished a lot. And we were very honored to represent you and to be here with all the other Episcopalians who are so faithful and intelligent and who really seek to work together to fulfill God's mission for our church.
My name is Martha Alexander, and I am so pleased to be a deputy from the Diocese of North Carolina, and I am a member of Christ Church in Charlotte. This is my fourth General Convention as a deputy. I have been an alternate on several other occasions, but this was a very special convention. They all are and have their own unique spirit about them, but one of the things that was really important for me during this particular one were just reconnecting with people throughout other dioceses and throughout the world. It's really a gathering of Episcopalians, and it makes us realize that we are all in one communion with God, and that the Book of Common Prayer, you know, when we have it in church every Sunday and use that as our book, that we can go anywhere in the world where there's an Episcopal church and we can feel that connection with people. So the General Convention's an opportunity not only for worship and doing legislation. The important thing to me is renewing old friendships, making new ones, and the relationships that are formed throughout our diocese and throughout the world.